welcome to another episode of From Breakup to Badass. I am Yanira, speaker, wellness coach, and your guide through the messy, beautiful journey of rebuilding your life after a heartbreak. And if you have not yet done so, hit the subscribe button so you never miss another episode of the podcast. And if you love this episode, leave a review because I would love to hear from you. So today we are diving into one of the hardest part of moving forward, which I think is forgiving yourself. Because here's the truth. The breakup might be over, right? But the replay in your mind keeps going and going and going. And you keep asking maybe, why didn't I see this coming? Why did I stay so long? Why wasn't I enough? And somewhere deep down, you start believing that the pain means that you failed. And I mean, it's normal. It's normal that you feel this way. But what if forgiveness, real, messy, radical self-forgiveness is exactly what sets you free? So that's what I want to talk to you about today. But I want to start about talking about what is forgiveness. So forgiveness is the conscious decision to release the resentment, the guilt, the blame towards someone, including yourself, because we're going to talk about self-forgiveness today. Even when that even when what happened wasn't fair or right. And it's not about pretending that it didn't hurt, because if you're here, if you're listening to me, yes, it did hurt, whatever you're going through. And again, sometimes I say this is from breakup to badass, but it could be from broken to badass, from heartbreak to badass, whatever it is that you're going through right now. Self-forgiveness is so important. And again, it's not about pretending that it didn't hurt, excusing the behavior, or reconciling with the person who caused the pain, right? Forgiveness is the inner process, and it's about feeling yourself from that emotional weight of the past, so it no longer defines your present. And this is so important because we live we're great at mental travel, right? We go to the past, to the future, to the future, to the past. And when we start reliving that, it's harder to let go if we keep reliving the same thing over and over. So forgiveness is not approval, okay? It doesn't mean that you condone what happened. And I'm not blaming anybody in this, but it's not the approval. It's not forgetfulness. It's not about, oh, this didn't happen to me, because it did happen to you, and it's shaping you to the person that you are right now. You can forgive and still remember what you learned. And this is the important part, because remember that life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. So everything that is happening right now is happening for a reason. It has a reason why it's happening. Yeah, I said that. But it's because maybe you needed to learn something. And forgiveness is not weakness, okay? Forgiving actually takes courage. It takes emotional maturity and strength. And it's not reconciliation. You don't need to bring someone back into your life to forgive them. You can actually do that in your mind. You can forgive them in your mind. You don't even have to talk to that person. And forgiveness is not an instant thing. It is a process, like everything in life. Sometimes we want that magic pill that is going to solve all of our problems. And look, life takes time. So instant doesn't exist. It's a process that unfolds as you reclaim your peace, piece by piece or step by step. So forgiveness is about boundaries, is about, okay, you know what? I'm gonna choose peace over poison, because remember, when you don't forgive someone, it's like you are trying to give them cyanide but you're drinking it like the poison. And forgiveness is also a nervous system shift, moving from fight or flight to rest and restore. And I have talked about fight or flight before, but when you're stressed, your sympathetic system, nervous system, stays on, and you are stressed, the cortisol levels goes up. But when your parasympathetic system starts, it's on, then you can feel rest and restored. So forgiveness is about that as well. I have a question for you. Do you want to be in fight or flight, stress all the time? No, I'm sure you want peace. Look, I have worked with so many women in my life when I became coach, and men as well. But we all want the same thing. We want peace in our life. So forgiveness is about that spiritual act of self-respect as well. Because when you don't forgive, you are holding all the grudge. So when you self-respect yourself, when you take care of yourself, self-care, you decide that your healing matters more than your history. And forgiveness is the bridge between pain and freedom. And I think that's something beautiful, because holding that resentment keeps your body in a chronic stress state, as I mentioned before. And we want to avoid that. We maybe we'll in a I don't know, like in the future, we can talk about the stress that everything that causes when you're in a heartbreak. But forgiveness isn't just emotional, it's biological as well, because your body is in pain, not only your mind, not only your emotions, but also your body, and you feel that. So forgiveness isn't letting them off the hook if something happened. It's about unhooking yourself from the pain. It's not weakness, it's the ultimate power move. And it's about the decisions that you make in life, and this is so important. So let's talk a little bit about why we turn on ourselves, and this is really important, because I believe that we tend to do this a lot. Like, we turn on ourselves, like, I am the one to blame. So after a breakup, many women stop blaming their ex and start blaming themselves. And this happens, however, I would invite you not to blame anybody. Relationships is a two-way thing. And I remember when I was going through my own divorce, my second divorce, I hired a psychoanalyst, I think. Yeah, I think so. I don't know, a therapist, okay? I just don't remember. So I stayed with him for 5 months. And he he didn't use the word blame or responsibility or who's responsible for this, but your participation. And I love that word, because I don't believe in blaming somebody else. I didn't blame my ex-husband. What happened, it was very hurtful, but I knew in my life that that happened for a reason. So, but many women, and the women that I coach, sometimes they stop blaming their ex and they start blaming themselves. And it's our brain way of trying to make sense of what happened, of the chaos. If it's our fault, then at least we have control. And this is very interesting. And 2021 study in the Journal of Personality found that people who experience romantic betrayal, about divorce, were 40% more likely to internalize guilt than anger. So self-blame, it activates the same brain region, right, as the physical pain, which is the anterior cingulate cortex. That's why guilt literally hurts in your body. And this is some of the things that I've heard that we tell ourselves as women in the middle of a heartbreak. I should have known better. You know what? maybe you didn't, or I wasted years, or I broke my family. And I'm almost positive that you did what you could with the tools that you have. And this is not an excuse, but all the things that happens to us, it those things help us shape the person who we are. If we take all this knowledge, right, all this situation, the adversity that happens to us, and learn from it, we're going to have more tools. But maybe by the time that this happened, we didn't have many tools. And maybe that's the reason why you are here today, because you're looking for ways to not feel this way. Okay, so guilt isn't the truth, it's grief wearing a mask. And I remember, and I mentioned to you before, but I remember when I got separated, it was a very tough time. It was very challenging because I was living in Colombia, then I needed to move here. I was doing so many things. I moved from the home. My dog died. When it rains, it pours. Basically, that's what I felt that happened to me. And I replayed many things that I did during the relationship. And this is why I think it's important to seek for help, from a person, a coach, a therapist that has more tools to help you do this. So I would replay over and over situations that I could have done better. But healing doesn't come from rewriting the past, because the past is the past and it happened and you cannot change that. But what you can change is how you behave in the future and how you react to everything that is happening to you right now. So one of the things that I use in my coaching practice with the women that I coach during this time, the heartbreak, they can grab a journal. I do believe in journaling. I don't do it in writing, not with my handwriting, because I always say that I don't even understand what I write. But you can do it in a computer. You can do it in a journal, or look, sometimes in your head. And these are the things. Let's say if you think about something like, I should have left earlier. Sometimes I say this because I felt, how I describe it is I felt like I was swimming, but as a tsunami was coming towards me, and I was going, I don't know how, but anyway. So if you feel things like, oh, I should have left earlier, maybe start asking yourself questions like, okay, is this fear? Is this shame? Is this control? Like, where is this feeling or this affirmation coming from, or this statement? Because it's not an affirmation. And then, is this voice protecting me or is it punishing me? Awareness is the first step to compassion. Okay, so that's one of the things that are important during your time, and that's an exercise that you can do. I have said many times that the quality of our life depends on the quality of the questions that we ask ourselves. And that awareness of what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling this, why now? Is it true that that I don't know, that it was my fault? All of that, it's good. And self-forgiveness isn't about excusing mistakes. You did what you did, or that person did what he did. It's about releasing the emotional charge that keeps you stuck in them, in those feelings, in those emotions, because that's what we want to overcome. Again, it's not avoiding the feelings, it's about overcoming what happened, okay? I I used to say, after I heal from my divorce, I used to say, yes, I cannot wait for the next adversity. Why? Because I have the tools to it. And several months ago, I was kind of depressed, and I think it was because of perimenopause. And I'm like, okay, maybe I don't need another adversity in my life. But the Journal of Behavioral Medicine, they have a study in 2019 that reported that people who practice self-forgiveness had lower cortisol levels and better immune response within 2 weeks. So it is so important that you practice self forgiveness, because that's going to have an impact in your health. Cortisol levels, that's the hormone that is related to stress. So you're going to be less stressed, and then better immune system. So you're going to feel better, you're not going to get sick, and all of that. And also, there is another study that says that self forgiveness is linked to reduced depression and anxiety. So that's very important. So when you forgive yourself, your body, according to research, relaxes. Your nervous system shift from survival to restoration, like from sympathetic to parasympathetic. You are creating the biological space for healing. Isn't that beautiful? So forgiveness is not about letting the past go. It's about letting you go back to peace. Don't you want peace? Yes, I do want peace. I do want peace all the time, and thank God I have it most of the time. I'm not saying all the time. So one of the things that the exercise that you can do as well, um, look at yourself in the mirror, and very simple, look at yourself and say, I forgive you. And you can say the name. You can say, I forgive you, Janita Pui, for the times that you stay, for not having the tools. I forgive you for surviving the only way that you knew how. And this is really important, because you were in that situation because maybe you didn't have the tools, or maybe I'm studying Kabbalah right now, and maybe that's what your soul needed to go through to evolve, to grow. So repeat those words in front of the mirror and say, I forgive you, Danita, I forgive you. And it's very empowering, because, again, your nervous system maybe needs to hear that compassion in your own voice, and not all of the people around you, but you. How do we go from blame to ownership? Because when we're not forgiving ourselves, it's because we're blaming ourselves. So forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, as I mentioned to you before. It means taking the responsibility for what's yours and letting go of what's not. If we're in a relationship, I can take maybe 100% responsibility of my things, but maybe 50% of the relationship. And I know sometimes people say no, like sometimes I'm like 30% of the relationship, 70%, but let's break it on the middle. You're two people and you both have, I'm not going to say responsibility, I'm going to say participation. You both have a participation in your relationship, or you had. And I can take responsibility of the things that I didn't do right. I'm not, like blaming myself all the time for this, but yeah, I had my participation in the facts that sometimes we didn't communicate to each other the best way, or maybe I was telling him the things that he should do that he was not doing. And it's normal, that reaction that we do, because maybe we don't know ourselves, we don't know the other person. And when you take the time to feel responsible of your acts, that's when you can start moving forward as well. Because if I say, okay, if we didn't communicate this that well in this area, okay, it was my responsibility. So what am I gonna do next? Yeah, maybe this relationship is over, but maybe there are other relationships coming. Or maybe I needed to learn this to have a better relationship with my friends, or whatever it is. If you take this lesson, if you take this adversity as a lesson, you're going to keep growing. And I always say my divorce was the best thing that happened to me. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't be, starting to write a book. So many things. I wouldn't be able to have changed so many lives as I have done today because of this. So I don't blame. I mean, I took this adversity for a learning experience, as I know in my next relationship I'm going to do things differently. And this is very important. And I remember one of my clients, about, I think it was like 3 months ago, once say, I forgive him, but I can't forgive myself for allowing it. And wow, that's very deep. And we worked on shifting that sentence, right? To I allow it then because I didn't know my worth, or my worth at that time. And now I do. So I choose differently. We always have option, and it's okay if you think that you chose the wrong way before. It's okay. You have an option for the future. So always paraphrase, rewrite the sentence, rewrite all of those thoughts that you're having, like, I'm not good enough, I'm not gonna forgive him because he's not deserving of my forgiveness. You forgive for yourself, you don't forgive for the other person. You don't need to see that person ever again. But if you forgive them, or if you understand that what they did again what they could with the tools that they have, just like you. And that's so empowering. And I think forgiveness is freedom. Every time you forgive yourself, you reclaim a piece of your energy that you have been using to hold the story together. And that energy is fuel for your next chapter, for what's to come, to become to the badass that you know that you are, like deep down inside. Maybe you don't know right now, but I'm sure that you are. And people, like, according to a research that it was made in Stanford's forgiveness project, people who completed an 8-week self-forgiveness program reported a 70% reduction in self-criticism and 50% increase in perceived life satisfaction. That's what forgiveness can do to your life. So again, it's not just emotional. Forgiveness is going to rewire your chemistry, your confidence, your clarity. I love affirmations. I have on my phone, I have a lot of affirmations, and you can use affirmations like, I release the need to punish myself. I honor what I've learned. I am free to begin again, like always in positive. And before I leave, I want to give you maybe some questions that you can ask yourself. For example, what's one thing I've been carrying that I can finally let go? Or what lesson did that experience teach me that I can now bless and release? Or what does freedom look like for the woman that I am becoming? Wow, forgiveness. This is so important. If this episode opens something inside of you, remember I have a free guide from breakup to badass cheat sheet. If it has practices like, the different things that we talk about that are going to help you to feel better. And share this episode with someone that maybe it's in the middle of a divorce or in the middle of the heartbreak. And if you love this episode, please tag me at Janita Pui Wellness. And I love to hear from you. And I'm going to leave you with the same thing that I leave you every single week. And you've got this. Remember, you've got this. And now go to live like the badass that you are.